Hello and welcome. It's Schwally. Back there snoring in bed is Cami Bear, and welcome to what may be the first of several videos and what might just be like a standalone situation. I really don't know. But as you can see from the title, today we're going to be talking about Nicole State and her, I guess my theory of her as a model scammer. So this video is probably going to be very different from what you've seen generally from other content creators that make content about scammers or Nicole State, like specifically scammers in general or Nicole State in particular. Because number one, you're going to be hearing Cami snore throughout the video and possibly bark, I don't know. But in addition, my presentation style will probably be a little bit different. That is because I have more of like an academic training. So I want to present you with like sources and text on screen to follow along with. So I prepared for this like it was homework, and I made a PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint, so that I can illustrate what I'm talking about. And right now I'm just going to be kind of looking at my screen, or maybe I'll put it over here. I'll look at my screen so that I can refer to my notes. But what I'd like to be able to do is share exactly what I'm looking at with you, because there's some topics that I'm going to be sort of covering today and sharing my thoughts about this topic. And these sources aren't me. It's not just my speculation. That being said, whatever I have to say in this video is just my opinion about this topic and putting these ideas together in a way that I think is interesting and hopefully you'll find interesting as well. So before I get into presenting you with my theory, I'm going to introduce myself, give some disclaimers, and then I'll walk you through building up brick by brick what my sort of hypothesis looks like. We'll be talking about Nicole State in particular as an example. And anyway, you'll see. So we'll start, let me pull up my PowerPoint so I can start putting it together, and then hopefully through the magic of editing, I will make myself into a little bubble and I will take you through the PowerPoint on screen. So yeah, sorry if I look at weird places. I'm just going to get used to recording on my iPhone. And like I said, this may be the first of many videos here. We'll see how this one goes. I hope you will at least like the video, leave me a comment letting me know what your thoughts are, and let's get into it. Okay, so the general idea for this video came from the fact that I am a reseller, and I'm also a person who's very interested in documentaries and other content online about scammers and online figures. And if you're also interested in that kind of thing, don't you ever just wonder what leads to the behaviors that we see from scammy or sometimes just terrible people online? If you watch these documentaries, don't you sometimes wonder what happened to make you this way? You're awful. I'm so sorry. When you're watching true crime, these are my thoughts. I'm you're an awful person committing crimes, committing fraud, committing scammy bullshit. Cam's gonna nest a little bit and get comfy back there. But what got you there? Because I feel like I'm a decent human being and I know how I got there. I know my life story, but what are these people's stories? Now, Nicole in particular is really interesting because she has done a couple of rebranding efforts over the last, I don't know, several months, where she was oh, let me tell you my life story and how I ended up being a scammer. Not her words, but she doesn't consider herself a scammer, although I do based on the evidence. I don't hate Nicole. I'm not going to say anything nasty about her. I'm just going to reference things that I've seen her do. And I do think she's a scammer. And I'm well, how did she get here? And I have ideas about that. So I'm going to share them with you in this video. So before we get started into that, I do have several disclaimers. The first one being that I am not a medical professional, neither speaking or acting in any professional capacity, although I do hold a PhD. Yes, I know, I'm so smart and great. But this is not me as my government name. This is me as Schwally, my online reselling persona, I guess you could call it. That's who I'm presenting as. I'm not presenting as Dr. Schwally. I'm presenting as Schwally, okay? The opinions that I'm sharing are my own. They're subject to change. As I believe your opinion should change if you get better or different information that contradicts, your ideas, then you should update your opinions. And so the opinions that I'm presenting today are my opinions today, but I might have a change of heart, or, if I see something new come out about Nicole that contradicts something that I say here, please just bear in mind there might be new or different information that would render these opinions kind of like, out of place or out of date or not making sense. So next, everything that I discussed today is my opinion. Some of the information I'm presenting is like fact-based, in terms of it being backed by peer-reviewed research, published research. But I would just take everything that I say with, I guess, a grain of salt, or just consider it as opinions, even especially because I'm going to be looking at some published research. The people who wrote that article may think that I'm full of shit. Like, they might not agree with what I have to say or the way I'm interpreting their work and putting it together to talk about Nicole. So I'm going to be presenting some information about borderline personality disorder. I'm not an expert on that, so I would just take everything I say about that as an opinion instead of as factual. That doesn't mean that I won't make mistakes just because I'm referencing research. I could still make mistakes on the way that I interpret this because, again, I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just interested as a person who has been in an overlap of Nicole State's sphere for the last 6-7 years. Ask questions, independently investigate any claims that I make. You can use the Google machine and look for reputable sources to refute ideas that I present. That's fine. Please don't take this content as a call to action to either bully or harass anybody that I talk about, either in real life or on the internet. If you are interested in Nicole State, you don't know who she is, or you haven't heard of her yet, please just leave her alone. Like, it's not a petting zoo. We're not here to interact with the animals, but we're here to just like learn about them. But it's like a bull moose. They need 100 feet of clearance for your safety and theirs. Okay. So like, don't treat it as a petting zoo. Please, I don't condone bullying or harassment. But feel free to sound off in the comments below. That hopefully can be our safe space to share our ideas. And hopefully you'll have some kind of a reaction to what I have to say. Last but not least, any content of Nicole's that I share here is going to be shared under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, used to transform it in a way, add my commentary, and give my own ideas. I'm not intending to infringe on her right to her videos, but I am able to use her content to prove a point or add context to the ideas that I have. So if I do that at all, fair use protects that type of content. And again, I'm not presenting it as my own. I'll make sure to clearly delineate when it's Nicole's content that I'm presenting, hopefully just as an example. Okay, so now me, Schwally Sells. I want to tell you a little bit about me just so you know who the information is coming from in the ideas presented in this video, who I am. Like I said, I'm not speaking to you as Dr. Allie today. Strictly just as Schwally, a member of the reselling community. I have been selling online on Mercari and Poshmark and a little bit on eBay since 2018. I started on Mercari, then I moved into Poshmark and eBay. Then I hit like a major mental health crisis and I shrunk back down to Poshmark only. And then I expanded back into live selling on Whatnot starting in 2022. I've also dabbled in live shows on Poshmark, Jamble, and the Keeping It Real marketplace on the District app, which if you know, but that is Vanessa's, that is rad. That's her marketplace on the District app. So I've also sold there. Let's see. My professional life, I have a doctorate, which I got in May of this year. I'm trained in research, so I have some skills to bring to the table. But again, this is not my area of professional research. It just, like, I'm presenting you a PowerPoint. It's because I'm an academic. I know of Nicole. So when I first started in my reselling career, I was a person who consumed a lot of online content. Including I came across some of Nicole's videos, so I knew of her, but I didn't know her and I wasn't like a fan or anything. But when I did join on Whatnot back in 2022, Nicole was the most popular seller in women's contemporary, which is the category that I was selling in. So I knew of her. I interacted with her pretty minimally on there. We quickly fell out because I believe I praised Vanessa and Nicole took it as a personal affront. I now understand why. At the time, I didn't really get it because I wasn't deeply in the reselling drama situation. Nicole and I have also interacted on a limited basis on social media, on TikTok, but I think she blocked me in 2023 on Whatnot and also on Instagram. So my access to her content has been kind of limited since we first sort of like interacted with each other online through Whatnot, because I was sort of an up and coming seller and she was just very popular with like 90,000 followers. I think at the time that I first started interacting with her, she probably had like 70,000. And then by the time she got off the app, she was at 90, maybe even 100,000. But then she was banned from Whatnot. I was not. I still sell on Whatnot. And then relevant to Nicole and also me, we have some sort of crossover because I do have personal experience with a loved one in my life who has borderline personality disorder. So it made me curious, okay? It made me curious because when Nicole sort of did, after she was banned from Whatnot, she started creating content on TikTok, which seemed like a rebranding campaign, in my opinion. And she was ascribing a lot of the choices that she made, a lot of her behaviors to having borderline personality disorder, or BPD is what I'll refer to it as often throughout this, this presentation. And I have seen other very functional people who also have the same diagnosis, but don't use it as a rationale for their behavior. And so again, it just kind of gave me a little bit more curiosity and a little bit more insight to wonder more about Nicole's experience and how she presents online and with her diagnosis of BPD. So here we go. Here's my theory, you guys. Okay. I think Nicole is an example of a model scammer, okay? This is a little double entendre because I made like a visual model, but I think she is like a model citizen, but a model scammer. I don't think she got there by accident though. And so I'm going to present to you my ideas that she is sort of at the confluence of these different factors, which include capitalism. Sorry, I had to come forward so I could like tap forward in my presentation. Capitalism, social media, and mental health. And at the center of all of that is, I believe, Nicole. And so we're going to sort of break this apart into the different spheres that I feel like have influenced her development. And then we're going to get into Nicole specifically. But we're going to start by pulling apart the different components and talking about how they can impact a person and how, if you consider the influences of them over time, how I think we got to Nicole as the individual she is with the behavior she exhibits as a model scammer. Okay, so starting out, we're going to go to capitalism. So I'm going to read directly from my notes here so you can follow along. Capitalism is an economic system where private individuals or businesses own capital goods. The production and distribution of goods and services are determined primarily by competition in a free market, with prices set by supply and demand. I feel like everyone's like little high school, vocabulary is pinging here. Profit is the primary motive, and individuals are free to pursue their economic self-interest. Okay, I have a few words highlighted here. Profit and self-interest being, I would say, the most important ones here, because it's a competitive system where your goal is not to be a good person. Your goal is to make money and pursue your own self-interest. Capitalism, I am saying here, promotes individualism. There is a pressure for financial success, and if you don't achieve that financial success, there's nothing built in or baked into capitalism that's going to be like a boost to you as an individual in the system. It's, on you to be successful. And if you're not, like, you fly or fall on your own merits. It promotes competition against other people for your piece of the pie, and can mean instability for people when their funds are either uncertain or your funds are low. I experience that all the time. I'm a broke ass lady, and it's unstable in capitalism when you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from, or you just can't meet your financial needs. That's one piece of the puzzle that we all sort of live under, is capitalism, which again sort of promotes these things that aren't necessarily, it's not a moral system, right? Capitalism is not a moral system. It's a system of pursuing your own economic self-interest, and it's the onus is on you as an individual. Okay, so moving on to the next sphere of influence, shall we say, it's social media. Social media refers to websites, apps that enable users to create and share content, as well as to participate in social networking. These platforms facilitate communication, interaction, and community building online. Now, Nicole has been active as a public figure on social media for about the last 10 years. So that's kind of where I feel like this is relevant to mention. I'm a millennial. I was born in 88. And so for me, I first got like a computer in my house when I was maybe like 11 years old, 12 years old. And social media came in the early 2000s. Sounds like, Facebook, I think maybe came out when I was a junior in high school, something around there. And I think Nicole is of a similar age to me. So that's kind of why I mentioned that. I feel like she probably experienced the same sort of like introduction of computers and social media around the same time that I did. So networking and community building within social media are skill-based tasks that can then be seen as an indicator of your popularity and or success. I think Nicole is actually pretty good at social media. I think she has been able to successfully network and build community. I think those are skills that she has practiced and honed over time. This requires a presentation of yourself, persistence in continuing to post on social media, and probably a bit of luck. But again, Nicole has been present in the online space for about a decade, I would say. That's kind of how long we understand her career on social media has been. So as we know, social media can also be used for marketing and business building, right? You can connect with your client base, you can connect with your customers, you can sort of build a brand within social media where you as the individual are the brand. And I think that's what Nicole State is, right? Like Nicole State is not her legal name, it's her brand, the same way that Schwally Sells is my brand. And within social media and building that network of customers and consumers, you can develop these parasocial relationships that can be used to influence sales. So what I mean by a parasocial relationship is everyone who is on the other end of the camera You don't actually know me. You're not actually in my bedroom. If I get a flat tire, you're not coming to help me. If I need a sitter for my sick baby, you're not coming over, right? You know me, but I don't know you from Adam. I don't know who you are. I wouldn't like give you a call. You get a lot of interaction with me, but I get no interaction back with you. So the relationship is very one-sided. The main example I think of for this is I was just convinced that Jenna Marbles and I would be best friends in real life. I thought her videos were so funny. I thought she was just an amazing content creator, so creative and hilarious and just like interesting. And I was just like convinced that Jenna Marbles would want to be my friend. Jenna Marbles has no idea who I am, does not know that I exist, and has nothing to do with me, has never heard my name, seen my face, and does not give a single care about who I am. But like, I'm a fan. And I like know things about her just through consuming her content. So that's an example of a parasocial relationship. I like her. I feel like I know her, and she has no idea who I am or what I stand for or anything about me. Another component of social media is the ability to rapidly spread information and conversely misinformation, which I think we will be able to see how that sort of ties into Nicole's story over time. The last bucket or sphere of influence that I'm going to allege kind of makes a difference or makes an impact in Nicole's story is mental health. And we're specifically going to be talking about her diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Because I'm not a mental health professional, psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, social worker, any of those things, I just went to an article, which I will put in the comments down below, referring to this number 1 here. In 1980, BPD came out as a distinct diagnosis within the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, which is used for, it's used by professionals for diagnosing different disorders. It says which kind of components a person needs to display in order to get a specific diagnosis. So BPD has been recognized since 1980. In the current version of the DSM, which is the DSM-5 TR, which I think TR stands for text revision, it divides personality disorders into cluster A, B, and C. Cluster B is highlighted here because that's where BPD lives in these clusters. It says here, each cluster encompasses a distinct set of personality disorders with commonalities regarding symptoms, behaviors, and underlying psychological patterns. So some of the other disorders that I have heard talked about related to Nicole, like some people have said like, oh, it sounds more like she has narcissistic personality disorder. You'll see it lives in cluster B. So there's overlap between those other diagnoses that people online have sort of speculated that she might also have. And it makes sense now in my mind, understanding that, oh, there's a cluster of these disorders. And so I'll talk you through a few other ones there. So cluster B comprises personality disorders. The overlap is that there are dramatic, emotional, or erratic behaviors. The cluster includes antisocial personality disorder, BPD, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. People who have disorders within this cluster often display impulsive actions, emotional instability, and challenges in maintaining stable relationships. So those things are common across the cluster B disorders, according to this article and the DSM-5 TR. So going more specifically into BPD, or borderline personality disorder, multiple factors within social and family domains contribute to an increased risk for BPD, although none are disorder specific. So you could have a low socioeconomic status and not have borderline personality disorder. Indices or indicators of broader social risk include low socioeconomic status, family adversity, maternal psychopathology, parental substance use, low warmth and harsh punishment in the raising or rearing of a child, child abuse, neglect, and low cognitive function. We'll get into these a little bit more, but I just wanted to direct your attention, especially if you did watch the videos from Nicole during her storytelling rebranding on TikTok right after she was banned from Whatnot. She mentioned quite a few of these things in her telling the story of her childhood. Now, whether we can consider Nicole to be a reliable narrator is sort of up for debate, in my opinion. But she definitely mentioned the socioeconomic status, family adversity, I would say, parental substance use, as I believe I remember her saying that her parents were both involved in drug sale, drug distribution, drug running, some kind of a drug ring that maybe her mom was involved in, the financial management, and her dad was a drug runner of some kind. I don't know. Definitely not what I would consider to be a stable family situation. So a lot of these kind of different components here seemed relevant to me. This next quote says that defense mechanisms associated with BPD include projection, splitting, and acting out, which are related to an insecure attachment style. I highlighted splitting here because we're going to talk about that a little bit more. The term splitting, because I had never heard of this. I didn't know what this was, but splitting kind of is like black or white thinking. The term splitting refers to the defense mechanism in which the patient cannot form a realistic view of another person. At any given time, the other person is viewed as entirely good or entirely bad. This inability to view others as having both positive and negative attributes impairs personal relationships. So do you guys remember in her story arc on TikTok, she talked about the idea of having a favorite person? This kind of seems like the result of splitting and seeing somebody as all positive, entirely good. And it also, in my opinion, matches up with her view of criticism as making the person saying the criticism all bad. Or it makes me think of the way that she doesn't like Vanessa and probably sees Vanessa as a terrible person because Vanessa has criticized her. And I think that's a result of this splitting, seeing somebody as all good or all bad. If you ask me, I can also see those of us who have been critical of Nicole as potentially also splitting and seeing Nicole as all bad because so much of what we've seen online is bad. But that's probably not, the ultimate answer, even though I'm alleging that, I think she engages in scamming behaviors. But she's probably not entirely good or entirely bad, just because, a lot of what we see is negative. There are some positive things I could say about her. So under the umbrella of BPD, personalities do vary widely. And again, that makes sense to me because, like I said, I know I have a loved one who does have the same diagnosis and completely different kind of person compared to Nicole, at least what I've seen. This article also stated that people with BPD might have higher harm avoidance, which I think could also be considered consequence avoidance, and a higher instance or incidence of seeking novelty, seeking new things and different things. And I kind of see the novelty seeking as reward seeking behaviors. Okay, I think this is the last slide I have for borderline personality disorder. And this quote says, maladaptive coping is inherent. That means it's essentially a part of BPD. Maladaptive coping is inherent in the diagnosis of BPD. It can present in several ways, including substance use, impulsive spending, high-risk sexual behavior, binge eating, reckless driving, self-harm, or self-sabotaging behaviors. In the case of Nicole, I think most of these things would be completely just speculative to say that Nicole is engaging in these different behaviors. But some of it, like the self-sabotaging behavior, I think we have seen in kind of her Whatnot career, as well as her rebranding via TikTok. I feel like some of that has been very self-sabotaging. And even what she referenced, like her referencing cheating on her spouse, Joe, I think that's a self-sabotaging behavior. And another major question I had about her was, if she was so successful financially from Whatnot and other reselling ventures, why didn't she have any financial safety net for when her son was allegedly in a mental health crisis? Why didn't she have, if she was so financially successful, why didn't she have a safety net to cover her expenses and his expenses in hospital? So I could see impulsive spending maybe being an issue for her, especially because sometimes she would like flex the stuff she had and sort of presented this view of herself that she was very successful. So maybe some impulsive spending there. And then the other ones that I really don't even want to speculate about, but could be present for her because maladaptive coping is present in people who have BPD. Okay, next. So people with BPD have a poor understanding of how their own behaviors are related to their feelings, dysregulated emotions, and interpersonal difficulties. So what this trait is that this is referring to is insight. So people with BPD have poor insight, poor understanding of how their behaviors are linked to their feelings, emotions, or interpersonal difficulties. So, for example, doing something shitty to somebody you love and then not understanding why you're like clashing with that person is kind of how I interpret this. Or not understanding how a dysregulated emotional status will cause you to make choices that are self-sabotaging, for example. Poor judgment and poor impulse control are common in patients with BPD. I think we've seen examples of poor judgment and poor impulse control in the way Nicole has shown up online in the time that we've known her, so that's not surprising to me. So now I'm going to talk about the overlaps between capitalism, social media, and mental health, because none of these on their own, I think, are enough to explain how we got this scamming behavior from Nicole. But if you start looking at the overlap, like how can capitalism and mental health interact with each other? So let's get into that a little bit. So starting with mental health and capitalism, financial stress can worsen anybody's mental health. But in particular, if you have a mental health diagnosis like BPD, I can see how financial stress would worsen some of those symptoms that already don't look great. Capitalism in and of itself promotes competition, not collaboration, not compassion, not a work-life balance. It comprises and promotes individualism, self-gain, self-betterment, and it's not like a kumbaya kind of a system. And to get services for your mental health care, it can be expensive. So that includes insurance expenses, particularly for people who are self-employed, for example, resellers. And insurance plans, even if you have insurance, might not cover mental health services. So there can be a financial barrier to getting your mental health services, even if you have insurance. And your copays can add up depending on how often you need to see a provider to get care for your mental health diagnoses. And let's say you're medicated, like I'm medicated for my depression. Copays for your medications can also add up, and not all medications are covered. So, just in general, taking care of your mental health can be financially taxing. Not to mention, financial stress can worsen your mental health symptoms. So I see these things as cyclical. This is my opinion, not something that I've like read about, but this is my theory. This part is like my opinions. So moving on to the overlap between capitalism and social media, which I started talking about a little bit earlier, but we'll get into it a little bit deeper. The use of social media as a marketing tool promotes unrealistic presentations of products because the goal is to make sales. So on social media, we kind of expect people to show up as their authentic selves. But when the goal of capitalism is to make sales, it's not to tell people all the flaws of this scuba sweatshirt that I'm wearing. The goal is to sell you the sweatshirt. It's not to like point out that the sleeves might be a little bit short, or, there's a stain or a hole on the back of the shoulder. And we've seen that social media is often a highlight reel for people. It can also be a highlight reel for products. It depends on what you're selling. In Nicole State's case, I think she's often selling herself just as much as she's selling a product. And it seems that under capitalism, the use of social media is to present an unrealistic view of yourself, as long as that helps you make the sale. Honesty is not particularly valued in either capitalism or social media. So promoting like me in my messy bedroom is not going to get as much engagement or likes as showing myself in Ibiza, right? Like that's a better visual, and the visual matters. There's no bonus. Yes, we've seen some people be like propped up for promoting, for example, body positivity. And then we see those same people using body reshaping filters and getting more interaction, showing us something unrealistic because we're so used to an unrealistic image from, decades of marketing images and advertising and magazines and print and film and blah, blah, blah. You can definitely see more of this honesty being devalued when you look at what I ordered versus what I got content online. So people will be like, oh, these are the digital images of the dress that I ordered, and then here's the one that I got. And they're just like, completely oh, I actually fell prey to one of these. It was this beautiful embroidered sweatshirt. I got it for myself and my sisters, and then I got like a screen printed, like cheap, terrible quality sweatshirt. Man, I was so excited for it. But yeah, lying, as long as you make the sale, is promoted both in social media and in capitalism. We've also seen some major scandals with fake reviews coming out where people will post either undisclosed sponsorships or ads saying how great a certain product is, or we've even seen on like Sephora, for example, employees of a company will post fake reviews on, Sephora's website about cosmetics or on Amazon. And we've had to get more guidance from the FTC, because if you leave capitalism and social media unchecked, people will use social media under capitalism to use that parasocial dynamic to influence people to buy, spend, and believe that a product will work miracles when really it's just lip gloss. Social media also very effectively promotes hustle culture, which we have seen just like ubiquitously, especially in the multi-level marketing kind of sphere, grind set mindset. And that is, just spend all your time grinding and hustling and working and make that money, honey, get that bread. Lastly, social media itself can be monetized, incentivizing people to treat their social networks and relationships as a financial opportunity rather than an authentic connection. So commodifying my personality and my interaction with you, selling myself as somebody who should be sponsored and should get more money because I can sell to you. Whew. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is wild, you guys. I've been talking for a while here, and we're not even there. We're getting there, but we're not even there. I hope you guys are having fun so far. Okay, the next crossover that I'm looking at is the interaction between mental health and social media. This one I feel like has been a lot more widely spoken about, especially because we know because of what we've seen from the research that has come out about the interaction between social media and mental health. Social media itself is often considered a person's highlight reel, making it really easy for users to feel that they're lacking or inadequate by comparison. Those feelings of inadequacy can certainly affect your emotional, mental health. Social media makes it much easier for people to be criticized or even bullied, especially in the online space, especially when we are able to do so anonymously and anybody can turn on a camera, say what they have to say, and upload the video to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And that increased opportunity to be criticized or bullied means that people can internalize those things. Even if I just stay in my house all day, I could still have droves of people coming at me and coming for my neck, even though I don't even leave my apartment. The next point is that increased reliance on social media for a connection can reduce the opportunities to make meaningful connections with real life social networks. So for example, your friends and family, which can make your feelings of isolation or loneliness worse. And when you do need support during hard times, you have less of an in-person network to rely on. So for example, now you're getting bullied and criticized online, and you spend your whole life living online. You don't have people in real life who can relate to you and understand and who you can go to, because you've been prioritizing your online persona and you haven't been prioritizing your in real life relationships with people who could really help reground you and not sort of fall victim to the negativity of comparison and isolation that are present online. In addition, doom scrolling, I think we all know what that is. It's when you're just on your phone for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Looking at your phone exposes you to light, which can disrupt your body's melatonin cycles to let you know when it's time to go to sleep. Your circadian rhythms can get all screwed up. And so being on your phone in general can disrupt healthy sleep-wake cycles. And having poor sleep is definitely associated with negative mental health. Being exhausted does not make any of us more resilient or gritty or better people. Being sleep deprived just makes us worse in terms of our mental health. So for all of those reasons and way more, social media is just generally not considered to be particularly good for our mental health. This now leads us to the center of this picture, which is where Nicole State lives. She is a person living under capitalism, living her, I would say, her entire adult life on social media and having this mental health disorder of borderline personality disorder. And the influence of all of these different things over years and years and years, I believe, has contributed to Nicole State being a scammer. So here's my recollection to give a brief and incomplete history of her online life. So from what I remember, she started out as a seller on eBay, and she created YouTube content, giving people guidance about reselling as a career, showing her hauls of what she was selling and sharing tips and tricks for other resellers to be successful selling online. I think after eBay, she got into Poshmark. And then eventually, there's so many things involved, but I think eventually she was suspended from eBay for postal fraud, for, shipping out orders with postage paid of like $1, but she would have charged the customer $8 to ship an item. So she just pocketed the $7 difference and was shipping something that had the weight of something that needed $8 to ship it. And she was only paying $1 for the label and then shipping it off. So the allegation, and I don't know, I can't speak to this, but the allegation is massive postal fraud got her kicked off of YouTube. Sorry, not YouTube. Got her kicked off of eBay. At one point in her career, there's actually a video that I'll link down below that gives sort of, it's like this faux LinkedIn account that gives a chronological and categorized list of her different like endeavors with times that these things allegedly happened. I'll link that. That video is by Vanessa. That is rad. And she just kind of talks you through the fake LinkedIn profile. Nicole did something called merch, which was widely criticized by people who paid into that. She did something called States Crates, again, a similar result. She did a planner for resellers at some point, which I believe also was not a particularly successful venture, but I don't know. I don't know what order these different things happened in. I do know that once we finally actually overlapped in interaction in 2022, because I was on Whatnot, she was on Whatnot, and there's a chat feature on there, so we started interacting. She already didn't like me or what I had to say within a pretty short amount of time and blocked me in 2023, I think. So in 2025, which is this year, Nicole was banned permanently from Whatnot. And if I understand correctly, the reason is that she did a show where she made $100,000 in sales in one show on Whatnot, which is wild, absolutely wild. The problem being she didn't actually have what she was selling. So she would hold up a Stanley Cup, just as a for instance, hold up a Stanley Cup and say, go, 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 bid, bid, bid. People buy 50 of the Stanley Cups, but she only had the one she was holding. So all of the other ones she would have had to order and then ship out with the money that she got for selling the 50 that she only had one of. I think it mostly happened with like Loungefly bags and other Disney merch maybe. While she was on Whatnot, my understanding is that she started in women's contemporary, which is the category that I primarily sell in. And then she went to selling like pet food and treats and toys for pets. And then she went into the Disney category. And then she was subsequently banned in 2025. So she had a good run on there. If she started around when I started in 2022, or let's say 2021, let's just assume she started in 2022. She had 2.5 years on the app before she was removed for breaking community guidelines and, in the opinion of many, defrauding the company Whatnot and all of the people who made purchases from her. The last thing that I recall her saying about Whatnot was that she had lawyers involved because Whatnot does this thing where you get instant payout. So you complete the show, you generate all the shipping labels, and then you're able to initiate your direct deposit like right away before you even ship your stuff out. And so I think she pocketed the money from that show, even though she didn't have the inventory. My understanding is she was going to use the money from the show to buy the inventory to ship out to people. It's kind of confusing and it's a scam. It's a scam, folks. I don't know what to tell you. A lot of the allegations from the time that she was on Whatnot were people were winning giveaways from her that she wasn't sending. I have so much to say about all of that, but in general, Nicole has been a reseller and content creator, presenting herself as a public figure for about 10 years. And part of the reason that I think this is relevant to talk about is because she is again on TikTok after taking about a month away where we didn't see anything from her, and now she's kind of back. And the stuff that I'm hearing from her now that she's back on TikTok is even more concerning than the stuff that I heard last time where she started each video saying, I'm Nicole, I cheated on my husband, I destroyed my family, I ruined my multi-million-dollar business, I was banned from the platform that was making me cajillions of dollars. I feel like what I'm hearing from her now is even more concerning. So On August 27th, today is the 31st. So I'm pretty close on this, but again, she has me blocked on TikTok. But what I heard from her videos, quotes that I took from her video included be delusional. She was wearing angry feminist armor. So now I think she's anti-feminist. I don't think she understands what feminism is. It's literally just equal opportunity across, no matter your gender. That's it. But she is now talking about how you're doomed to fail if you're living in your masculine when you should be living in your feminine. That to me sounds like the divine masculine and divine feminine of the twin flames cult, which she said she almost got wrapped into. So I'm very confused that she's using this language that is reminiscent of the twin flames universe language on divine masculine and divine feminine. Now she's kind of using that language colloquially. And I thought she realized it was a cult. I think she watched the documentary. She's now saying things that in the past she's responsible for not putting her family or God first, and thinking that she could do it all by herself. She is now saying, which I find extremely troubling, maybe the way she's presenting it is the troubling part, but she says emotions only take 90 seconds to process and then you're done. So if you just internalize the emotion that you're feeling for 90 seconds, that feeling will go away. And she said, quote, "It's that easy. It's science." As a scientist, I don't know, girl. Where's your source for this one? I need more information. She also says happiness is not the goal. Happiness is just another emotion that gets you through the day, and that you can be happy anytime. You can just shift your mindset and you can be happy anytime. I find these things very troubling. I feel like she is once again doing a rebrand, and I think that is not good. What I'm hearing from her is not somebody who spent the last month in therapy with a certified or licensed mental health professional or, a clinical social worker. That's not kind of what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is somebody who's maybe reading some self-help books, somebody who's maybe cherry picking some content from the Bible, which is not a mental health resource, I'm sorry to say. I find it problematic and concerning. Just as speculation, Nicole as a person is somebody who shows us an addiction to social media, an addiction to money, and an addiction to external validation, which reflect these different spheres of influence that I'm sort of proposing have sort of built the monster that we've seen. And the reason that I would use that kind of language, I'm not trying to bully her, but as she's talking in her most recent TikTok rebrand, she has one of the videos, the first video I watched, she was like, you have to forgive yourself. And then you have to forgive other people. And there was one other thing she said. And I was like, what about taking accountability? And accountability, to my understanding, is naming what you've done to hurt people and owning that and apologizing for that, right? So hey, Stacy, I kicked you in the shin and that hurt you. And I'm sorry that I kicked you in the shin because that hurt you. I'm not going to kick you in the shin anymore. And I'm really sorry that I did. And I understand it's wrong to inflict physical violence on another person. And I'm not going to do it again. I'm really sorry. That's accountability and an apology. And Nicole's just forgive yourself. You got to just forgive yourself for the stuff you've done wrong. And you got to forgive the people who wronged you. And in the context of what I know of Nicole, I don't know who wronged her. I don't know. Could it be just speculatively? Is she upset that Whatnot let her go for so long? Is she blaming Whatnot for encouraging her to make all these sales? I don't know. I don't know what that situation was with her and her rep for whatnot. I don't know if she's blaming the platform. I don't know if she's blaming the victims of her scamming, where she like lied about the MSRP of things. So people bought from her under false impressions of the value of what they were buying, or the people who won giveaways from her, where she benefited by gaining a bunch of followers, but she didn't actually pay out the other side of that, which is sending somebody a Nintendo Switch or whatever it was. I don't know who wronged her. If anyone has wronged her, I would blame these three systems. I would blame capitalism and social media and her mental health diagnosis. Now, when I say that, I don't mean like she can just say, well, I'm a bad person because capitalism made me do it. That's obviously not the case. Most of us live under capitalism and don't resort to misleading people to line our own pockets. Like, most of us aren't doing that, right? Some people do it, but not most of us. We all need money to live, to survive. And we all, because you're finding me on social media right now, we all engage with social media. Again, that doesn't cause us to treat people badly, which is what I have seen from Nicole, is that she treats other people badly. And I think if she just had like just social media, just capitalism, or just BPD, I don't think we would see the same level of behaviors that we have seen from her. I think the confluence of those factors, and probably a lot more, but I think that's sort of what has led to her being a model scammer. I think that she justifies her behavior as long as it gets her paid. I think that she uses social media to rebrand after things go wrong and to try to tweak the narrative in her own favor. I think she looks for external validation from her supporters to look for her to present with a comeback. I think she manipulates that parasocial relationship to gain external validation that she desires, because her in-person relationships are unstable, and that she has that insecure attachment style that's associated with BPD. Those are the things that I think. Those are my opinions. Do I have anything else here? Okay, yeah, what's to come? Holy shit. What do I think is going to come moving forward from Nicole? This is totally speculative, but I think we're going to see more religious language and a shift into Christianity to absolve her responsibility for past harms. I think we're going to continue to see her rebrand on social media and seek that external validation from her supporters and new supporters. I think she's going to continue to present Nicole State, or whatever her new sort of branding is. Like, I think her new TikTok is called The Diamond Theory. Whatever it is, I think she's going to continue to package herself and monetize herself as a product. And I kind of think we're going to see more cult-like tactics where this is what I'm seeing in the most recent videos, where she says, I have the answer to success and I will tell you. I will tell you how to find success. And she's got her spiky glasses on. And she's like, this is how you do it. And I'm like, Nicole, friend, comrade, I think you need to slow down on projecting out to people and telling them how to find success until you identify in your guts what success is for you, and then achieve that. So show us you setting your goals for what you want out of your life and achieving those goals. And then you could maybe come back and say, like, guys, I set these 3 goals. Here's my evidence that I achieved those goals, and here's how I did it. Instead, I think it's more going to be cult-like, because I think she's just going to appeal to her own authority and sort of manufacture that to say that she's got the answers, and she's going to present that to you in order to monetize her TikTok or monetize whatever next thing she's going to do. And again, appeals to external authority and even appeals to financial success to justify her own behaviors. I think that's what's coming. That's That's what I think. I don't know, man. I just yapped for like an hour, a full more than an hour on this topic. And that's honestly, that's all I have for you guys today. I'd be really interested to see if y'all have a similar take to mine, or if you feel like I got it wrong in major ways or minor ways. I'm just really interested to have a conversation. And again, my interest in topics like this comes from, like, I'm a true crime consumer, and I'm always just thinking, like, how do we get there? And I'm not saying that Nicole is a criminal. That's like not what I'm saying. The allegations of charity fraud would, if she had never paid, that would have been criminal in my opinion. But I'm not the judge. I'm not the jury. I'm just a random girl sitting in her messy ass apartment thinking about like charts and graphs to explain why I think Nicole State scams people. And from what I understand, so here's some of the things. From what I understand, her family situation is not, I feel like she might be estranged from her family. I don't think that's like a solid support system or support network for her. So when she fails, she just fails. Like, she doesn't have anyone like helping boost her back up. I don't think she is using networks in her life to talk about and think about ideas. I think that Joe mostly enables her behaviors. I don't know that. I'm completely speculating. I don't know much about Joe. I don't really care to know much about Joe personally. I find Nicole a much more compelling figure than Joe. And yeah, I feel like the main victims in her scammery are her kids, which I don't mean to be like, I'm not coming for your kids. I don't know. I don't even know their names. I think you have two. I think you have two kids. But I think that, especially after the documentary I just watched, which y'all should watch it. It's on Netflix. It's Unknown Number, the high school catfish. After watching that, I just really felt like so heartbroken to see the impacts that adult behavior can have on their children. And obviously, as Nicole, before she disappeared for like a month, she put out a post saying like what was going to happen with her kids and like where they were going to go. And it sounded like they were kind of going to be in different locations. Like her two kids, one was going to be with Joe and one was going to be with her or with somebody else. I'm not really sure. One was going to be with, I don't know. I don't like stalk Nicole. I'm not like up in all of her business. I don't know everything about her. But again, as somebody who's in like an overlapping category and just is interested in these kinds of topics, it's really interesting to have interacted myself with somebody who I think is sort of a prolific character in the reselling and social media spaces, who has lots of allegations of scammery behind her. I think it's also challenging to talk about Nicole because I don't know how reliable of a narrator she is. But taking her at her word that she does have the BPD diagnosis, taking her at her word that, you know, there are some things that we can externally fact check, but her life melted down. You know, she completely melted down and has lost everything. And now she's back. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that and where she goes. If any of my predictions are correct, doesn't really matter. And just as a reminder to Nicole, if you are here, if you are watching, none of my opinions affect you. They don't matter. I hope you do well. I hope you get therapy, and I hope that your family experiences as minimal impacts from your behavior as possible. I hope that it will get better. And especially moving forward. I wish good things for you, but I don't wish good things for you at the expense of other people. So that's kind of how I feel about all of you. I wish good things for you, but not at the expense of other people. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested to hear more of my thoughts, either about Nicole or about any other public figure, please LMK any topics that you would like me to cover. And that is it. So there's Cammie. She looks really comfy. I hope that me looking all over the place at my PowerPoint wasn't too distracting. And I thank you so much to anyone who's still here. Yeah. Thanks. I'll talk to you next time, if there is a next time. Holy crap. All right. Wish me luck editing this. Bye.